Okay, so we will start. Good evening. I am James Townsend. I work for the Reach Foundation and I have the real pleasure of introducing you all to Yorkshire 100, along with 10 different academy trusts from the region who have come together to think about how do we collectively build the leadership required to ensure that children experiencing disadvantage in Yorkshire get the education that they deserve. And that's really at heart what this sort of enterprise is all about. We've had a lot of fun and some really it's been a really stimulating couple of years doing a similar program in the southwest of the country, and we're now very excited to be doing a Yorkshire version of this. And to tell us more and to talk about the need for the program and to lead us through a bit of an overview, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Verity. Verity, over to you.
Thank you, James. Hi, everybody. It's really lovely to see you all here today. Thank you for giving up some of your time. And there will be plenty of time for you to ask questions. So we'll start, make a speedy start now so that you can see what we've got to share and then think of anything that we haven't thought of that you might have questions about. So I'm going to start off. I think you can now see my screen. Just give me a little thumbs up, James. You're on my deck. Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm going to start off by just introducing myself in a sort of very teacherly way, of showing you my own educational journey. You may be able to tell, or may not, I'm not sure, that I'm from Doncaster. And so I'm here today because I have a kind of really confused mix of both gratitude and frustration about the education system, and particularly in Yorkshire, because as you can see here, I was a very smiley and dimpled young person having a really fantastic time in education in many ways in some great institutions in Doncaster. And that led me to go and do a degree at UCL, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. However, if you look in that kind of middle photo, there's lots of people in that photo who didn't have the same opportunities and who didn't have the same benefits that we all know as educators are afforded to you when the school system does its job really well. So from that kind of initial frustration with what I saw as being an unfair situation or an unfair advantage to certain people, I went and joined Teach First. I took my righteous frustration off to Teach First as a 23-year-old, and I worked at a school in Edgware in North London, if any of you know it, London Academy. And again, a brilliant institution in a lot of ways. I learned a huge amount, but it was also through this process of working in a state school in an urban area that I thought we're still not getting it right. And now I'm part of this system that I don't think is getting it right for young people. So I looked for something a little bit different. And after 3 years of teaching, I found Reach Academy, which is in Feltham, as in I didn't found it. I found them and went to work for them in 2014, just giving myself a large promotion there. And it was something really different. So if you're not already aware, Reach Academy is a small school, and it's all through, and it's in West London, serving a really underserved, traditionally, community. And I learned just a huge amount there about having a really values-driven organisation and about how to put children and relationships with children and their families right at the forefront. And I loved working there, and it was wonderful to get to be part of the senior team there after a few years. And I think we saw the fruits of the labour. Obviously, it's hard work. We all know it's hard work working in schools. But when that hard work is paying off, it feels like you're making a real difference. But my next frustration was around that being in London and not being in Doncaster and not being in Yorkshire. And for me, I always wanted to come home to Yorkshire. I now live in Leeds, so not far away. And And I thought, I want something similar. So I found myself getting a job with Dixon's Trinity Chapeltown, which, again, some of you may know the Dixon's chain. They're across the north, not just in Yorkshire. And here again, so grateful to have the opportunity to work with some incredible leaders and to learn so much about routines and rigor and about amazing coaching systems and the difference that that can make, and started working on building links with the community. And again, that frustration is still there, that not only are we not supporting children as much as we should be, but also we need to support teachers, because we need to be able to do this work for a long period of time, and we need to be able to run the marathon and not just the sprint. So that's led me to now be working with Reach Foundation, and I started working here in September. And what I can honestly say, and we're going to get to hear from some Southwest 100 ambassadors in a short while, is that the Southwest 100 programme has really opened my eyes to what is possible in terms of the type of development that teachers seem to really want and that leaders really want. And that's why I'm here today. So without further ado, I want to sort of move on to think about why you might be here. At the moment, these are the statistics, so they are quite startling in their frankness, but 1 in 3 children living in Yorkshire are living in poverty. So 1/3 of your class or 1/3 of your school are currently living in poverty. These are statistics I know you will be painfully aware of every single day that you go into school. And then we have the fact that whilst child poverty rates have fallen in London, they're actually increasing here where we live. And that continues to be the case over the last 10 years. The disadvantage gap in Yorkshire is wider than the national average, and it's growing at a faster rate. So our disadvantaged children are less likely to be getting out of their state of disadvantage than in other parts of the country. And recruiting head teachers is a huge challenge. We've done some focus groups. I've worked in the area. I know that it's a real challenge to hire head teachers and other teachers, but especially head teachers. And it shouldn't be, because what a wonderful job, what an amazing privilege to be able to serve your community in this way. And we need to find a way as a system of making this a manageable, desirable, amazing opportunity for people, no matter what postcode they live in. So this is what we are doing about it. We want to identify and nurture 100 future head teachers to lead schools in Yorkshire where all children can thrive. That is our mission, that's our goal, and hopefully that's why you're here today as well. These are some of the trusts that we are working with, and you can see already the partnership here is broad. It's made up of a number of trusts of different sizes, and it's really spread out across the county as well. So we are incredibly excited to be launching this, and we're really lucky right now to be speaking to Paul from Exceed, who's going to just talk to us a little bit about why his trust have decided to partner up with this. I'm going to just not share my screen for a moment. And Paul, can I hand over to you?
Great, thank you. Exceed Academies Trust's delighted to be a leading partner for the Yorks100 100 programme and a board member as well. We're delighted to be working with some of our friends that operate in the city of Bradford, where we have 11, soon to be 13 schools, trusts like Beckfoot and Northern Star. But we're also really excited about working with some new friends across the region. Some people I've already met. Some of the people on the call I know quite well. Other people are very new. So looking forward to learning from everybody. I was asked to briefly just talk about some of the reasons why Exceed Academies Trust wanted to get involved. And I think there are probably 3 reasons. And I hope I don't steal some of the thunder really of some colleagues later on in the call who are going to talk about some of the content within the Yorks100 100 programme. So I think the first thing to say is that as a multi-academy trust, we have quite a good track record of innovating and offering some different leadership programs to schools in Bradford. So in recent years, we delivered an aspiring head teacher program, which 115 aspiring leaders joined. And we also had an aspiring executive head teacher program for 50 leaders. We were able to work with those leaders, particularly CEOs from trusts, but also a range of school leaders, to really think about good practice. But we also had the opportunity to pop down to London and to visit some outstanding schools in Lewisham. What that did is it really gave those participants that space to think and to grow and to understand what outstanding looks like. But more importantly, those leaders grew in confidence and they became increasingly ready for that next step within their career. Over 50% of those colleagues secure promotion within a year to the next level of their career. Now, when Yorkshire 100 came along, that instantly resonated with us as being something very similar to what we'd done before, but at the same time, very different. So that opportunity to come back and to invest and grow leaders, particularly head teachers, is something that we're really passionate about. So this is another great opportunity for us to explore. The second thing that really excited us was the potential for international study visits. For a long time, because of the pandemic, of course, those exciting CPD opportunities disappeared from the system. Since the pandemic, however, I've been fortunate enough to spend a week in San Francisco with Apple, and I know there's some other colleagues on the call who joined me there and equally learnt to juggle, amongst other things, in San Francisco. And we've had colleagues who've had opportunities to visit Qatar and schools over there. Those sorts of opportunities have sparked conversations about how can we do more of that? How can we bring those international experiences to more colleagues within our trust and beyond? And again, we believe Yorkshire 100 is a fantastic opportunity to introduce those wonderful experiences for our colleagues. The third aspect that drew us to the programme was that as a trust, we think we're actually quite good at growing head teachers for our own schools and academies. But just because we're being successful in growing those leaders doesn't mean that we don't need to engage with a programme like Yorkshire 100. We feel that we've got a really strong moral purpose and we have an ethical goal to contribute to system-wide improvements in education. So we're delighted to be helping to shape and to deliver the Yorkshire 100 in a way that will support our friends across the region. And we want to be able to help address some of those recruitment and retention challenges that we see in the region, particularly in terms of growing head teachers. So 3 things. I could have gone on for much longer, but we think Yorkshire 100 is a really exciting opportunity and we really look forward to supporting colleagues on the call and potentially beyond, and working with our friends across the region.
Oh, thanks so much, Paul. A really comprehensive intro there, and it wouldn't be possible without that kind of system level of generosity. And we're going to go now to Richard at Australia, just to give us a few of your thoughts as well, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Oh, can you hear me? Sorry.
We can, yes. Thank you.
All right, I'm actually in a Premier Inn and my bandwidth is quite low. But the reason why I'm in Premier Inn because I spend much of my working life in Yorkshire, but I'm actually based in the southwest. So I've got one point in common with you, Verity. I spend much of my week actually in Doncaster. I'm actually in Doncaster East Premier Inn at the moment. Because I do spend much of my week in one of our most challenging schools, Woodfields in Balby Car. So I'm actually I live actually in Southwest, and one of the reasons why I was so passionate about Australia joining Yorks 100 was actually I've seen the impact of Southwest 100 in the Southwest, and I know organisations and MATs and people and participants who have actually engaged with it and how much they've got out of it. So when I saw that Yorks 100 was coming into existence, I was like jumping for joy, literally going, right, we need to be part of this. Now, our trust doesn't actually have the capacity at the moment to have our own pipeline of leadership development. So this supports trusts like Australia that are in a development point where we don't actually have that pipeline that we want, that we can actually train. It's something we want to do in due course, but actually this really helps us. Now, I've been involved in a number of headship recruitment rounds in South Yorkshire, and I know how difficult and challenging it is to find the right people. And so this again offers a really useful and good potential pipeline. Now, finding heads to run be the heads in some of the most difficult, challenging schools in Yorkshire is a really tough, challenging job. So I can see that this really helps. Now, heads are absolutely critical. No matter how good the mat is, you need heads to actually run the school, and the heads make a critical difference in leading schools. So this program can really support that and make a difference. Actually, heads can make a huge difference, even in the highest performing mats, to how successful the school is. So I think this is really going to support high quality pipeline of talent. Now, one of the other things, I've seen how successful this program has been in the Southwest, as I said, and it's been really good to see the tweets and social media visit outcomes of the recent visit to Nashville and the charter schools there, and seeing the difference schools like that can make in the most challenging, disadvantaged areas in the US, and what we can learn from that. And in the past, I've been ahead twice in two very challenging schools, but I've been really influenced through the Knowledge is Power program in America and the US. And that's had an influence on a lot of our highly successful schools in urban areas in Britain. So I think the same principles can make a difference in Yorkshire as much as it can in London and other places like that. So I'm really excited about this because I think it's going to make a huge difference to Yorkshire, and I've seen the impact in the Southwest. So really happy that Australia is part of it.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And it's great to hear that the sort of the American influence is just broad and wide. And I think I was lucky enough to be on the Nashville trip as well last week, and it was just so fascinating to be there. And I hope you're enjoying your Doncaster premiering experience, Richard. Always a classic. Great. Okay, so if I can pass over now to Adam Dale at Ledger. I don't know if you're, oh yeah, your camera's working, great. Thanks. Hi, Adam.
Are you okay? Hello, everybody. Good evening. I feel as though everybody else has been asked to prepare in advance, and I've just been dropped in it. So I've just been trying to make a few notes. So why led you on to be involved in this? Well, firstly, a bit like Richard said, I was firstly bowled over by the CEOs from down in the Southwest 100 who've been involved in this, and they talked very passionately about the impact this has made in their schools. And my first thought was then, why not Yorkshire? And actually, this is about supporting talent like the people on this call now to really lead special schools in areas that perhaps need it most, in areas some around Yorkshire. One of the things I always talk about is having your name above the door as head teacher. And actually, everybody thinks they know what it's like to have your name above the door, but actually, unless you've been there and done it, actually, you don't. And what I want and what we thought that this program will do is give people that real experience about what it does feel like and get experience of when you do get that name and it goes above the door or on the Ofsted report or wherever it goes, and that you're actually prepared for that. So we're pretty excited that our leaders will be able to do that. And also that I think in Yorkshire, it's a good place to go to, that because I see really passionate people about the young people of Yorkshire. And I think on this call, we've probably got people who are determined to make Yorkshire the envy of the country, really, educationally, as opposed to when I first came back to Doncaster, and perhaps, dare I say, a laughing stock of every time I went into a meeting, it was talked about Doncaster, about how poor it is, and that we're bottom of the league table in this and bottom of the league table in that. And I think we need to change that narrative. So that's a real passion of mine. I also think the education world actually needs some things like Yorkshire 100 more now than ever before. The education world is challenging, is complex than ever before. But I think at times like this, then it's really important that we create these partnerships and we learn from each other, and we We have go-to people when we need it most. Again, when your name's above the door and you're really being asked really questions, perhaps not going to your trust, not going to your CEO, but going to colleagues, head teacher colleagues, to actually find out what they would do and get their advice, I think is absolutely essential at this time. And perhaps, dare I say, in this world of the Twitterati in terms of education, when they've seemed to intent on kind of doing each other down, that actually we need a program and a group of people who are kind of willing to support each other and kind of be positive and talk positive about their experiences in education. So I think Yorkshire 100 is absolutely the vehicle to do that. I do have to make one apology though, and perhaps we're all living and breathing this. I've got identical twin boys and they're both in year 11. And in order to the bribery and corruption to get them to revise and go to the revision session this evening, I said I would sit down and watch the Man City game with one of my lads. So as you're probably aware, I'm sorry, I know it's not in Yorkshire, but he's a Man City fanatic. So the reason I got him to go to English this after school today is I said I would sit down and watch Man City with him. So James, I'm really sorry. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to leave you and go and sit and watch Man City with him. But really excited about this, and I'm really excited about the talent that we can develop across Yorkshire.
Absolutely no problem at all. I have no knowledge of football whatsoever, but I hope they win to make that worthwhile for you. Thanks, Adam. And finally, I think we've got a few words from Johnny as well. Is that? Are you ready? Are you prepared? I don't know. I don't know what James was doing behind the scenes there.
I am indeed. Yeah, James has kindly just said, just talk for a minute. So I'm going to attempt to surprise my colleague Heather, who's on the call. And for the first time in my entire career, bring it on the dot. So here goes, minute starting now. I'm the CEO of the Education Alliance Multi-Academy Trust. We're in East Yorkshire and Hull. I'm a Lancastrian, but brought up in Yorkshire and with a real passion for Yorkshire schools. And I think I would echo and endorse everything that's been said by my colleagues there. I think for me, what's so attractive about this programme is the fact that it recognises that challenges in schools are not the same across the country. There are specific challenges in the north, specific challenges in the northwest, and actually leadership in that context is crucially important. The other thing I'd say that I think is a almost unique feature of this programme is that sense of partnership and having a network, going into headship and having a network of people who are pretty much in the trenches with you. Headship can be a really lonely job. In a great trust, you have that protection, but you don't always, it depends on your context, but having that ongoing group of peers going forward who recognise what you're going through to draw on, I think is really powerful. So we're delighted to be involved. 1 minute, 11 seconds. I couldn't do it, but I tried. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Yeah, appreciate those kind words. And I think the most important thing to know that this is completely a partnership. Yeah, so we want to talk now. I'm just going to reshare my screen. We want to talk now just about some of the things that make this unique. Obviously, we know there are NPQHs, for example, and lots of other qualifications that you can do. So we are not saying we're better than those, we're saying we're different. This is a different offer. And what makes this unique is that it's co-created and led by Yorkshire Trust, as I've just said. It's locally rooted, but nationally connected. So the school visits and sort of international visits as well. We focus a lot on relationships and that kind of relationship-centered practice, and we want to build a strong cohort. So that's relationships between the participants as well as relationships within schools and making sure that they are strong. We have very much a less is more approach, very much a do less, well, as opposed to doing less well. And we are trying to focus this on the next role. So not training you for what you are currently doing, but what you will be doing next. So that's what kind of we think makes it unique. But we would love to hear now, if we can go to Krisha first, if you don't mind, who is currently on the Southwest 100 second cohort programme, and can tell us a little bit about your experience. Thanks, Krisha.
Thank you, Verity. Hi, guys. It's really lovely to see everybody's faces. I am someone who grew up in Bradford. I grew up in Bingley, right next to Beckfoot School. So it's really wonderful to see the Beckfoot name in there. I have had a really unique school experience, I think. I went to 13 schools growing up. And so from a very young age, I was able to see the sheer disparity between what certain students and pupils receive in one school as opposed to the next school right around the corner. And from a very young age, knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I, like Verity, was lucky enough to join the Teach First program and thought, this is fantastic. This is how we change the game. This is how we change the system, and had a fantastic time, but found myself in a school where I felt like I was fighting that system change without necessarily the support that I wanted and peers who felt as like-minded as I did. I was really lucky in that I managed to find my dream school and my dream opportunities, and at a very young age became a head for the first time. And due to very personal reasons, I left that school after 3 years of headship and thought, what next? What do I do? And I spent a good 6 months genuinely trying to find the right company to work for, the right values-driven organization. And I went to school after school meeting heads and CEOs and thinking, is this it? Is this the one? And interestingly, it was a Teach First Ambassadors Facebook page comment from James, I believe, that said, hey, have you considered relocating to the Southwest? Because we've got this really cool program going on. And I honestly hadn't thought about the Southwest once in my life. But I came onto a call like this and saw very similar slides in talking about the educational disparity in the Southwest. And I just thought, this is it. This is the next thing. This is what we need to be doing. So after that one meeting, again, it's probably around a year ago, I thought, okay, I know what it is. Now I need to find the trust. I need to find the school that's going to support this. And as you guys have 10 trusts coming together, we had a handful of trusts coming together saying, yes, in order to make this change, we need to not be competitive, but be cooperative and be collaborative in the process. So I was really lucky to join the TED RAG Trust, which has seen, I believe, 6 people go through the Southwest 100 program, 3 last year, 3 this year. And through that experience, I've not only gained a huge amount of friends who are at a similar level that I am, who understand how busy headship is, who know, as someone said, how lonely headship can be, and have supported my relocation, but who I haven't seen as competition in getting to that next stage. I've really seen as peer support. We have been through a huge roller coaster of learning, and it is, I would say, the most ambitious. Verity, I'm not going to say it's better, as you said, but it's different in that the ambitious rate at which you are expected to really dive deep into the big questions around research and best practice through opportunities to explore at a regional and nationwide level that best practice firsthand is just something that I think will stick with many of us for years to come, and will continue to guide our thought processes as we continue as leaders and head teachers in education. I could speak for 100 minutes about how incredible this program is, but I'm so excited that Yorkshire is the next region that will be going on this journey. And if there's absolutely any question I could answer, please feel free to get in contact. I'm on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Krisha. And yeah, a wholehearted approval rating there. Thank you. And Harrison, if I can pass over to you. So Krisha is currently working in an all-through school, mainly in primary, and Harrison's going to give us a bit of a view from the secondary, if possible.
Yeah, so I just very briefly, I taught in London for 9 years at Paddington Academy in West London, and I've been down in Torquay for 5 years as Vice Principal for Teaching and Learning. I'm on the Southwest 100 program now, and even though Verity is not allowed to, or is far too modest to say that it's the best CPD out there, I think I'm allowed to say that it is, in my experience, been absolutely the best CPD coming from a secondary point of view. I think we all know that some of the CPD out there is pretty ropey, and at best we kind of take back little sort of kernels of things to our schools that make an impact. What we have been able to do is to go out to schools. I think we're now, if you include the ones in Nashville, we're probably up to about 12 13 different schools this year, being exposed to some of the best leaders in those schools, the best systems, the best approaches, the best ways to kind of narrate the work that we do and to communicate that to students and to communities, and to bring that back to our schools, and to rethink who we are as leaders and what that means, you know, when we take that next step. I think it's already been kind of mentioned, but I think relationships are huge. I'd just like to come back to that. And when I kind of heard that pitch for the first time, you know, in a similar kind of way, I honestly couldn't quite conceive what that meant. And I think when I look back over the last few weeks in particular, I think, wow, actually what we've created is just a really strong, sustainable network of people who are like-minded on a mission. And sitting in schools in Nashville last week with nearly 50 incredibly powerful people as a group, you know, across the Southwest who want to make the same change, that suddenly clicked for me that actually here we are together, you know, in a really powerful situation as a group, and as a kind of movement, if you like. The final kind of thing I'll say is sort of like a personal journey thing as well, because you know, over the last few years, I've kind of had a couple of thoughts in my mind. One, I thought at some point I'm going to be ahead, you know, at some point. That was always kind of the plan. But the other bit of my brain was like, you're not ready yet, don't worry, there's no rush. And actually, when I step back out of that, I kind of think, well, there is a rush actually, because there's a job to be done out there, and there's a head teacher recruitment crisis going on. And actually it was this program that gave me the headspace, if you like, and the meeting of lots of really humble leaders who were extraordinary at what they did, but at the same time expressed huge humility and said, you know, look, we're not the finished article, we're learning from others, it's all a team sport kind of thing. And through a combination of that and the network of like-minded people behind me who had my back, I decided to go for it, and I was offered a headship a couple of weeks ago in Exeter. So, you know, I really owe a lot of that, and like my increased kind of confidence in stepping into that role to the program. And that's yeah, that's not a marketing pitch, that's absolutely real, and I said it to some of these guys last week. So yeah, that's been transformative for me, and I think I'm not alone in the Southwest 100 feeling like that, and I hope the same, I know the same will be true in Yorkshire.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to hear, and yeah, very much congratulations. I think for both Krisha and Harrison, who both, by the way, need to go off and do their own evening things. So thank you very much for being here. Very happy to share your contact details if you are, and then people can ask you questions. But I love what you've just said, Harrison, about we've created this, and it is very much a cohort that have created this. So I'm really pleased that you talked about the relationships there. And yeah, again, congratulations to both of you on your amazing success this year. The children that you serve are really, really lucky, and I feel humbled to have been working with you through this. So thank you. Wonderful. Okay, so we do have some time for questions in just a moment. We first though, hang on, let me just go back to my screen. We just wanted to go through a couple of other points. Just so that you've got a full overview of what this entails, because as you will probably have guessed, it's pretty intense. It's we're trying to do something different. We're trying to have system change, so that means that we need to take this really seriously, and that's definitely what our communities deserve us to do. So this is the 3 parts of the program. We embed strong and trusting relationships, and as I said before, that's between the cohort members, as well as thinking about those relationships between staff and school, between staff and students, between staff and families, and the wider community as well. We talk about recruiting and developing great teachers, so that's about the kind of professional development, and how we recruit and retain, crucially, our staff, and then creating and sustaining that culture of excellence. that's what we focus on. So we said we do less and we do it well. Those are our 3 strands. That's what we focus on throughout the year. And we are unapologetic about keeping it quite simple, but going really deep in those 3 areas. And this is kind of how it unfolds. So we have an opening and a closing residential. And the opening residential is there to build those, to start those relationships. We have termly conferences, termly visits, and termly tasks. The first one I think just deserves a mention because it's something that's really quite different, and that before I'd worked at Reach I hadn't really thought about or even knew about, and that's the idea of having a listening campaign. So going out into your community and asking questions without an agenda, finding out what people really think. And I know that a lot of the participants found that really, really useful. We also have leadership coaching, pre-recorded videos, so that's 4 hours each term, live webinars, that's 2 90-minute webinars each term again, and building that community as well. So sharing the insights and unpacking the challenges together. So that's how we do it. That's the what and the how. And this is the when. So roughly, this is what happens in the autumn term. You can see how it kind of develops throughout the term there. And then in the spring term, we have more of the same. And then finally finishing up in the summer term there. So we have the international trip that we've just been on. We have more school visits, and we have our closing residential as well. So that maybe gives you an idea about how much time this is going to take. But here are the kind of FAQs that we think you might need to know the answers to. First of all, I just want to address the "is this for me" question, because I think a lot of us, like Harrison said, think, oh, I'm not ready yet, or I've got time. But we do have this sense of urgency about our programme. We call it Yorkshire 100 because we want 100 head teachers within the next 5 years, which means that we need to have that sense of urgency about us. So if you want to be a head teacher in the next 5 years, then yes, it's for you. We don't have a requirement that you are currently in a certain position, but we would like you to want to be a head teacher in the next 5 years. It's state primary and secondary schools, but also AP, special schools, really welcome to apply as well. And this beautiful diagram here, thank you, Sam, for introducing me to this, is if this is you. If this is you, then yes, it is for you. So I'll just leave that up on there for you to have a little read for a moment. And this is also in the Substack. I believe Sam will have links to that going out at some point. Okay, so hopefully that addresses the "is this for me?" The fact that you're on this call would suggest that it very well may be. And then just to give you a little taste of, does this look fun? This was the residential. We like post-it notes, so if you like post-it notes, then this is going to be good for you. And this is where we stayed for the residentials. It's really nice. I think there's no harm in saying that we want to also have a wonderful time. This is unbelievably, this is a steak dinner served to us at a school down in Launceston. We weren't expecting this when we requested a school dinner, but they have a catering qualification, and the students made us a steak dinner. So, and you can see all these happy smiling faces apart from Sam at the front, who characteristically is looking the wrong way. So these are some of the other schools that we visited. Food is a big part of what we do. This is an incredible banquet served to us at Eden Girls School in Coventry, and just a couple of pictures from Nashville as well. So can you see yourself amongst these people? I'm sure that you can. Which version of Yorkshire are we talking about? Many conversations about this, but this is the area of Yorkshire that we are talking about, and the local authorities that are within Yorkshire. But feel free to get in touch if you have any specific questions about whereabouts we're talking about. And then the big one, obviously, is about time, and I sort of alluded to this earlier. It's going to be 13 term time days. So obviously we need to make sure that your school leaders have the capacity for this, because the residential, the school visits and the conferences, they are all really, really important, and they are what is going to build the sense of cohort, but also give you the opportunity to see best practice, to see things that you like, to see things that you don't like and that challenge you. So the days, the visits are really important. 12 hours of pre-recorded content, as I already mentioned, and 9 hours of webinars as well. So it's a commitment, it's a time commitment, but as John says, if you don't do it, nothing will happen. We're not going to come around to your house and put a red mark next to your name, but if you don't do it, nothing will happen, and the learning and the development, the growth won't be there. So it's a commitment to yourself as well as to the community that you serve. Here are just, Harrison mentioned earlier, the number of schools that we visited. So these are the London ones that we visited, and the Midlands, Swindon in the middle, a couple down in the south coast. And then these are all of the schools that we just got to visit in America. So as you can see, a really wide range of schools that we got to visit. And that is an enormous privilege, we know that, but I think we've all learned a huge amount from it. So how much will it cost? It's 1,500 for primary, 3,500 for secondary, and we do ask for a small contribution towards the international visits, but again, we have discussions about that. So please let us know if you think that's going to be a prohibiting factor. Can I do this if I work flexibly? Yes, absolutely. We are 100% committed to everybody being able to access this. If they work flexibly, if you work part-time, then just letting us know which days you're available, and we can try and build things around you as much as possible. So big fat yes on that one. And how do you apply? Well, here is a QR code to the joining. If you want to do it right now, that's absolutely fine. Or you might want to ask us some more questions. So I will stop sharing here and see how we're doing. Did we hit the jackpot and think of all of the questions that you were going to think of? This never happens. There's always one.
Well, Verity, to get the ball rolling, we did have one in the chat earlier on, which, which you kind of alluded to, but could you talk a little bit more about this question? Yorks100, MPQH, substitute or complementary? Discuss.
Really great question. From the conversations I've had with people, and feel free, anyone who has done one or both, Chris, I'm not sure if you did the MPQH, I think you did, so you're going to be a good person to come to in a second, is that one is quite practical. The MPQH is maybe quite practical, and we certainly want to be very practical as well, but we also want to build that sense of cohort, and we are regionally rooted, locally rooted in Yorkshire. So that would be the biggest difference, I would say. I definitely know people are doing both. Krisha, do you want to say a little word about that? Oh, I think Harrison has done it as well. Wonderful. Over to you.
I'll go first, and then Harrison can say it more articulately after me. I would agree with you, Verity. I think that after the MPQH, which I really enjoyed doing it as a first step, I felt like somebody who could be a head teacher and meet the guidelines required. And I felt more confident in the legalities around headship, of which there are many. And I think it's something that is actually extremely overwhelming when you're going into that headship for the first time, and ultimately the buck stops at you. I would say in the SW100, as Harrison said, we've all grown more personally, but we've also really grown as community leaders. And that's been a really big difference. So the focus hasn't always been that this is what we need to do to run a school, but actually this is what we need to do to serve our community and not necessarily the community that we're teaching right now, but the community over the next 5, 10, 15 years, and even into the next generation. So I would say that's the big standout for me, on top of then those extreme high quality opportunities to really connect with those on your course, rather than simply through 1, 2, 3 sessions across 2 years. Harrison?
I would agree with all of that, Chris. I think the I mean, my MPQH happened to start just before the pandemic, and so it was quite an odd one. And maybe it's not fair for me to comment, but I think I didn't find it all that practical as a qualification. I didn't feel like you know, the focus on writing about something and writing things up actually did justice to the work that we were doing. And so I think it's, you know, it's great to have that badge, but in terms of what has engaged me and challenged me and caused me to think about things in a different way and to grow as a leader and a person, and all that community stuff that Chris just talked about, to actually feel more rooted in, you know, we're not just a group of people anymore who happen to work in schools that are in a similar place. We are a group of people who are on a mission together. The collaboration isn't just ad hoc anymore. It's like, it's just how we're going to be from now on. And I think that would never have happened. And, you know, that sense of mission that ties us together is really important, versus like the competition perhaps that used to be in place, you know, if we didn't know each other so well. Yeah, the MPQH can't do that. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you both. Does anyone have any further questions about the kind of MPQH Yorks100? No, okay. There was another question around funding. James, shall I hand that straight to you?
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. So I think the question was around the fee for participating, and does that come from the school or from the trust? But both have been true for participants in the Southwest, and I think that really probably depends on the individual school and how you organize sort of professional development or sort of opportunities within your particular trust. I will say, just to be clear on the funding, the reason it's we charge less for primary is just, as you will all know, just typically the budgets are much smaller in primary. We wanted to recognize that, especially some of the very, very small rural schools, that there's not a lot of scope for you know, not lots of extra money. So we tried to recognize that, and we also commit as far as we possibly can. If a school has a real struggle financially, that should not be a barrier to somebody who has been selected joining. We raise a chunk of the money for this program philanthropically, and we'll do our very best to enable kind of anybody who kind of secures a place but whose school is struggling financially, that they should be able to participate.
Great, thank you, James. Oh, lots of people saying it sounds exciting and wonderful, great, and so lovely to hear. We think it's really wonderful, and it's great when we hear that other people think it is too. It's a real thing that's happening. Okay, I think we have Sam, did you want to just share your question that you have heard a lot of?
Well, yeah, just that I've had 3 calls today with people in the Southwest and Yorkshire who have all asked the same question, which is, do I have to be a deputy head? Or if 40 deputy heads apply and I'm an assistant head, do they get it ahead of me? And the answer is no, because we don't think there's a sort of ideal candidate for the program. We think there's maybe an ideal assemblage of people within a group, and within that group having a diversity of experiences from across the region in different size schools with a different kind of lived experience, with different leadership experience at different stages in their career, that's all really enriching for all of us. So that's just to say, like, if you are an assistant head in a small rural primary school, like, good, you've got some real rich experience in that context, and the group will benefit from that. So yeah, that's just a question we get asked all the time, and it's a difficult one to answer in a pithy fashion as I'm demonstrating here, but diversity is good.
Can I just add to that, Sam, briefly? From a primary background, I feel acutely aware of the fact that it feels like lots of systems at the moment are quite biased against primary, especially small primaries. If you look at the statistics of primary schools who have been rated outstanding, more or less a perfect correlation with how big the schools are. And lots of primary colleagues who have joined the first few cohorts of Southwest 100, I think, and Chris, like, please do correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's a sense of that amongst primary colleagues, like I'm not quite as ready as some of the secondary colleagues in the big secondary schools with kind of 2,000 students, and they've been responsible for large numbers of students. And you know, my position has been as a kind of a subject leader in a relatively small primary. And so just to emphasize that what Sam's saying, part of what we're trying to do here is actively kind of combat some of that bias, because our experience has been, and you've heard it tonight from Krisha, that amongst the very most impressive individuals who we've been lucky enough to work with, they've come from primaries, from small primaries, and haven't necessarily had some of those big sort of titles that some of the secondary colleagues have.
Yeah, I just really quickly want to add to this question, just by saying that one of my peers on the course this year that has challenged my thinking the most is someone who is in the classroom the majority of the time and didn't have an official title, and her ability to be so grounded in understanding how to sequence a curriculum just reminded me of actually what it's all about, because we have these big things that we talk about, but it's really easy to get lost in that big picture as well. And so I actually think our course has benefited from not being a room full of deputy heads.
Yeah, I think building the dynamic is a really big part of the application process, and then the kind of choosing the team, really. There was a question about the application process, which I think Sam's just dropped a link in for. The deadline is the 9th of May, so relatively speedy turnaround, but we want to make sure that you've got plenty of time to kind of think about what this is going to entail for your year next year. Are there any other kind of practical questions around the application form, or anything else that it would be helpful? We've got 3.5 minutes left. You're due to be on a webinar until 8:30, but if you need to go and be free in the evening with your 3.5 minutes of freedom, you're very welcome to. But if you have any other questions, I'm very happy to stay here. It's just so wonderful to see so many people excited about this, and genuinely I think it is going to be transformative for the region that is already an amazing place to live and to work. So I'm so grateful that you're all as invested in it as I am, and as we are, and it's going to be an adventure.
Verity, can I say one thing to close?
I would really like
which
that. Yes,
is that there's great people know great people, and so if you are considering applying for this and have got excited about it and heard about it and taking the time to join on a kind of Wednesday evening, you're likely to know other great people who might well be interested as well. So we'll just ask you this, obviously it's the first cohort, please spread the word, because we want as many people as possible to hear about this, and you are probably the best people to tell them about it. So if you could pass it on to contacts who you believe could and should be great head teachers, then that would be fab. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with any other questions. We will do all we can to help answer them. Thank you. Good night.
Cheerio.
Thank you, everybody.